Yes.
So this is the Marketer's Dilemma podcast show. With us today, Steve Sasman. Steve and I, we go back a few years.
Yes.
We originally met at a startup, right? Which was kind of an agency / startup accelerator, incubator itself.
Sure.
Where I was working on the agency side as one of the first employees, and Steve was leading the charge, I guess, were you more on the accelerator side?
Well, no, I was with the that SEO software side. There was a lot of sides involved.
There was a lot of sides, yeah. So give a little 30-second intro, because that was the Sycara side, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, that was, it was a fun time, but anyway, and it did, I was there a couple of years. I think you were there a couple of years, type of thing, and it was what it was.
Yeah. And so we've stayed in touch since those days. We've, I guess, collaborated on some things. What I've always kind of found intriguing about you, and it's become kind of more top of mind for me as I've tried to get involved with the startup community here in Rochester, which is not really bubbling like the one in Phoenix was, and continues to be, is that you're thinking of new ideas. And that to me is one of the marks of a true entrepreneur. You're always kind of ideating, testing things yourself, and a lot of it successfully, I would say, most of it. But you're doing it on, you're bootstrapping it, right? You're not out there looking for $1 million investment. You're investing your own capital. A lot of sweat equity, as our friend Gary Vee would say.
Yep.
And one of your latest ventures has been this Tesla business. You've done a lot of things with Tesla vehicles for the past, 6 years or so, 5-6 years?
Yeah, basically, since 2014.
Yeah. So what is your latest foray into the Tesla world?
Well, let's see. So for the first time in 6 years, the last 3 months or so, I've had no Teslas. And for the prior 6 years, I had anywhere from 1 to as many as 3 at a time. And I was doing, Uber, I was doing Lyft, I was doing Turo, a lot of the rideshare, or not rideshare, but the sharing economy type stuff. And then, but when the pandemic hit, I kind of got out of all that and I sold everything. And now I am very excited because I've got a couple of new ideas, as you mentioned, that are bubbling that I want to work on. And the very first one is I just got the new Model Y, which is a little crossover SUV. And what I'm going to do with that one is I am going to attempt to be the first person to actually create a Tesla snowplowing business. So actually, my first little adventure is I'm going to run up to Durango, Colorado, to pick up a little snowplow that will fit on the back of the Tesla. And then I'll bring it back to Flagstaff, Arizona, which is up in the mountains in northern Arizona, which is where my vacation rental cabin business is. And, I'll start doing my own cabins and then try to branch out and get a bunch of other clients as well. And then I'm going to document the whole thing on YouTube, try to, inspire some other people to try interesting things and see where it goes. Yeah.
Love it. So what's your marketing message? What's the value prop, or how are you differentiating? Why would someone want to order a Tesla vehicle to plow their driveway versus a Ford F-150?
Sure. Well, first of all, I've got a couple of unique challenges, right? Because I actually live in Scottsdale, which is a 2-hour drive from Flagstaff. Yeah. So it's going to be really hard for me to be someone because the snowplow business works a couple different ways. You can either be the type of person that says, hey, I'm going to do your property every single time it snows. I'm going to charge you this much for the entire year. And you can count on me to be there every single time, right? Or you can charge per event, per snowstorm. Well, the first one for me is really going to be out of the question because number one, what if there's a surprise storm that I'm not there for, and then that would be bad service, right? Mm-hmm. Or number two, say I'm off on a road trip doing something else and I'm, 4 states away and then it snows and once again, I can't get to it. And then once again, bad service. So that whole one half of the operation, I can't even do. So I basically have to do it on an on-demand basis, meaning I'm going to basically announce that, okay, I'm here and I can do, as many jobs as I can do in the next 24, 48 hours, however long the storm lasts, right? So that's my challenge is I got to come up with some kind of innovative ways to market that and to get the word out on short notice. And then also, there's a lot of good things I can do with, Nextdoor, which is the kind of the neighborhood app, which I'm involved with. And then, there's Facebook marketing. And then I think I can even do hopefully some stuff with PR, right? Using the whole, hey, it's a Tesla snowplowing. That's a very unique and kind of weird, crazy thing. So maybe, like I've done in the past with some of my other projects, is I've gotten some amazing PR, which could just, give me more business than I'll ever need, right? The kind of the problem though with Flagstaff, as far as for this business, is snow is very intermittent. Mm-hmm. We had one winter where we got 4 inches of snow the entire year. Mm-hmm. So, I could literally make, $200 mm-hmm. and that'd be it for the whole year. That's a possibility, right? The other possibility is it snows quite a bit and, maybe I can make some okay money for the time I do it. So it's really, really challenging as far as that goes. But for me, it's really not about how much money I'm going to make on this. It's about illustrating and trying something new and something fun and something that can, once again, motivate other people to try new, interesting things.
Got it. So you're thinking ahead around how you can potentially create some content out of this, kind of productize it, package it, and monetize that down the line. Very interesting. How, let's say you generate all the awareness, you generate some demand in the Flagstaff area to start. How would someone reserve your services? How does someone book you?
Well, okay. One of the first things I'm going to do is I'm going to get a big, my URL is teslaplowing.com. So I'm going to get a big sticker that I'm going to put on the actual plow. So anytime I'm driving around town, it's going to have that, which will be very visible and easy to see. And that'll drive them to my webpage, of course, which I'll break down all the information. And in part of that, like you said, what makes me different is the plow that I'm getting as well. It's a very, it's a home type of a plow. In other words, it's not a huge, 5 foot tall, big steel, heavy plow that you're going to see running down the highway, right? It's kind of a little dinky thing, but it'll actually work, right? In all but the biggest of blizzards. So that, and it has a rubber blade. The very bottom of it's actually thick rubber. So the benefit to that for the customer is it's not going to scrape up or dig up their pavers, or it can even go across grass and not tear up your grass. So it really, in other words, I can't mess up their yard at all, which is kind of nice. And then, I'll also tout the fact that, hey, there's going to be no emissions on, no whatever. Not that, most people won't care, but it's at least something to talk about, right?
Yeah.
And it'll be quiet. There'll be no noise. They could be asleep and I won't wake them up, type of thing. yeah, so there's a few interesting little twists I can add in there. And the other thing too that I'm going to try to attempt to do is, typically in the snowplow business, I mean, you do the work and then you try to chase the money afterwards. Well, I'm a big fan of getting paid first. So I'm going to try to incentivize the people to pay me first, and then that'll prioritize them as far as getting their job done before someone else who didn't pay first. Right. So we'll see if that works. I mean, these are all just kind of, ideas that I have right now. And, I'll know a lot more once I've done this a time or two. We'll see what works, what doesn't work. It'll be a lot of testing and experimenting and, just doing it on the fly and seeing what sticks.
Right. Yeah. The quietness factor, that's an interesting value prop. And I like the Tesla tumbler there. So, as someone that has a young, a toddler, that morning sleep time can be vital, right? Because if they hear just a little bit of noise, they're up. And me now living in upstate New York, where we're kind of known for snow in this part of the country. And I have someone that comes and plows my driveway, and sometimes he's out there at 5 a.m. and you hear him, scraping that asphalt, at 5 a.m. and it's waking everyone up.
Oh yeah.
So the fact that it's quiet, and I wonder if you could, well, I don't know. Now I'm like, my mind's shooting off. And if you can incorporate SMS into it or something with texting that, you can send a confirmation out, hey, your driveway is done, right? Because it's so quiet, they don't even know if you came until they're out of bed and checking outside the window. Yeah, no, for sure. And one thing too that I'm going to do, I'm going to incorporate using like Google Maps, right? Because what I want to be able to do is have someone. At first I was like, hey, can you text me a photo of your driveway so I can get an idea of what to quote them? I'm like, well, that's dumb. Number one, that just makes them do a lot of work that they don't need to do. All they need to do is text me their address. I'll have my iPad with me. I can pull up Google Earth in 2 seconds and go, oh, this is what it looks like. Okay, great. That'll be $30, or oh, it's a really big one, it'll be $80 or whatever. Mm-hmm. Right. So that's another way to kind of use some technology to make it to automate the whole process. Very cool. What was your original inspiration for
this part of it?
Yeah.
Well, actually, so I have some cyber trucks on order, right? The big, huge trucks, which are coming out next year. Mm-hmm. And I was super excited to do snow plowing in one of those. But that's still a year or two off. And I kind of put that whole thing to rest for a while. But then this year, when I was trying to get someone to do my own properties up in Flagstaff, I texted the guy that I used last year, hey, are you going to be able to do my driveways this year? No reply. I'm like, okay, well, and then it's funny because that actually motivated me, like, oh God, I have to try to find another person. It's hard to find good people that are dependable up there. And it just motivated me, like, okay, you know what? I'm going to figure out a way to make this smaller Tesla work. And what did I do? Of course, I hopped on YouTube. I started doing some searches. I found some really interesting videos of people plowing with regular cars. And then I found one that was doing it with the back tow hitch, which I'm getting anyway. Mm-hmm. And then I was like, boom, this works perfectly. So yeah, it's going to work great. And I think with the Tesla specifically, since they have an amazing backwards camera when you back up, since it'll be on the back, which is kind of a pain, but with a huge backup screen, I think it'll be great. So we'll see. I mean, it's all speculation at this point, but.
Yeah. You touched on something else that, when I moved back here, and you don't think about this stuff when you're living in warm weather parts of the country, is you have to get all these, the lawn maintenance, the, services and snow plowing, and you have to get all this stuff on contract, right? Because that's where, you save a couple bucks at least. And in upstate New York, you don't want to get caught in a situation where you are, having to call someone every time it snows. And I found it really difficult getting a hold of companies or individuals. Like the customer service aspect I found was just really lacking, or even before the customer service, the sales part of it. You can't get anyone on the phone. And then, they have really kind of antiquated business practices. So, a lot of them don't take Cash App or Venmo. They need a hard check mailed to them.
Yeah. And that's another thing. I am specifically going to try to get them to use the Cash App or whatever. And then I'm going to even say, hey, you get an extra $10 if you sign up for the Cash App, because that's part of the Cash App. It's either 5 or 10, depending on what their promo is. But yeah, I mean, that would, that gives them another way to save money. And then it makes my life a heck of a lot easier, because I don't want to deal with a check or, regular cash or whatever. I mean, it's Cash App or Zelle or Venmo and done. Right.
Yeah. So is the plan to maybe not to franchise it, but to build out a fleet of Tesla snowplow vehicles?
Yeah, I haven't gone that far down the rabbit hole, and I don't know, yeah, I don't know. I just don't know how much, I don't know. I mean, on that one, my other idea that I'm concurrently doing as well, that one will have more potential, I think, to expand into scale than the snowplow thing, especially just because, like I said, the snowplow thing is so weather related. And I mean, I'm sure like up where you live, up by where you live in the whole Northeast and in Colorado and other places, it's a much more dependable thing.
Yeah.
But, where I am, it's just very hit or miss. So it's not like it's a side gig, basically, Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like you have the blueprint for something that could be successful, and you've used the kind of, the Tesla brand to generate interest for some previous things that you've done. And a lot of, a few of them made national news, right? Like the Tesla Hotel. So
yeah, exactly. I mean, that's one thing I learned very early on, was that the Tesla name is media gold. I mean, it really is. It's like you attach that to anything and it's an instant headline. So yeah, when I put together the whole Airbnb hotel thing, the world's fastest hotel, I mean, that's all I had to do and it was over. So
yeah. Well, hopefully that translates to this latest venture.
Yeah.
As someone that follows the company closely, and I believe you've actually been to the factory, is there anything that you're excited about that Tesla's coming out with? I know that obviously the truck that you have on order, but is there anything else, even any software updates to their current vehicles that are piquing your interest?
Yeah, sure. Well, two things. First off, yeah, the Cybertruck, actually went to the Cybertruck event. I was, feet away from, the stage where they were, throwing the ball at the window and it broke and the whole thing. And I mean, I just remember standing there next to some dude who I had never met. And like 10 times we kept going back and forth, looking at the stage and looking at each other and just going, what in the hell? Just like, oh my God, this thing is crazy. I mean, it was just nuts. It was just nuts. And, at first we're like, is this thing even real? I mean, what is this thing? It was just such a mind blower, and then over time, I didn't even know if I liked it at that point. But then over time, the more I thought about it and the more versatile I thought about it, it being, basically indestructible. It's not going to rust. You can throw rocks at it. Who cares? It's faster than a Lamborghini. It's got amazing, things it can do. I mean, you can sleep in the back, and have a ton of room. It's got that tonneau cover thing. So I don't know. There's just so much about it that I love. Yeah, so that's super exciting. But then the other thing is, as far as software, is I don't know if you've seen any of the latest videos of what's called FSD, which is full self-driving beta. And it's only been out maybe 2 weeks. And it's really, really, really a huge leap in the quality and the functionality of autopilot. So now they're basically, they can basically go from point A to point B with zero interventions. Now there's sometimes when they do have interventions, where you have to take over a time or two, but it's getting to be really, really good. So for a long time, I was starting to get very skeptical in terms of the autopilot and wondering if it was ever going to be to the point where you could actually have the car drive and like be in the back seat or whatever. But now with this latest update, it's still I think a year or two away at least. But to me now I can see the light at the end of the tunnel. I can see that, okay, this has legs now. It's got enough of a foundation where I think it's actually going to work at some point. So it's pretty exciting.
That's cool. You think Tesla is going to be, are they leading the pack right now? So obviously, Google's working on self-driving tech, Uber. Who's going to have that first mover's advantage?
Well, I mean, Waymo is a completely different thing, right? In fact, they already have right here in Phoenix, they already have driverless. There's no one in the front seat right now. So they're already doing it. However, each one of their vehicles costs something like, and I don't know if this is right, but something like $250,000 with all the equipment on it. Mm-hmm. So it's very, very expensive. And number two, it's geofenced. So it only works in a pre-mapped, pre-planned area. It's not like, whereas Tesla is going about it in a completely different route, where they're not using LiDAR. They're not using all this expensive technology. They're using just cameras. Same thing we have, 2 cameras. That's all we have. And they're doing it with just a different approach, where they're basically going to be able to have the car go anywhere in the world, even places it's never been before, and be able to go through whatever kind of road or circumstances that it comes upon and do it correctly. So obviously that approach is a lot harder. So it's going to take longer, but once you get there, then you automatically have it and it works anywhere in the world. Whereas the Google approach works on a very small area. Mm-hmm. And then they have to go figure out a whole nother area, little piece by piece by piece. So, I mean, the Google's you could say is ahead right now, but I think in the long run, I think the Tesla approach is the smarter way to go. Plus, not to mention they'll have, millions of vehicles on the road that can do it. So.
Right. Well, yeah. And if it's costing, $250,000 to get a vehicle with that capability, sounds like it's pretty much cost prohibitive from a consumer standpoint, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, how many Uber rides do they have to give just to break even on that vehicle?
Right.
I mean, right.
Yeah. Yeah. You almost have to have an existing trucking business, right? Or a fleet of vehicles. And I guess I'm struggling to put together, I'm cost savings, right? Because you're automating and you no longer need drivers, human drivers, but from an upfront cost standpoint and overhead, I mean, what does maintenance look like on that thing if something breaks down, right?
Sure. Yeah.
A piece of that technology breaks. Well, we can count on Phoenix probably continuing to be like the lead test market, right? Because of the ideal weather conditions. It seems like anytime I hear of Tesla testing or Uber, it's always in Phoenix.
Oh, I know. Yeah, you don't see it starting out in Manhattan or India or somewhere.
Which maybe they should.
Maybe they should.
if there's any AI involved, it would get trained a lot faster if they're driving 10 miles an hour, start stopping every 10 seconds.
Exactly.
Well, very cool. I'm sure I will stay abreast of everything that you have going on with regards to this new venture. I wanted to ask you, so obviously, like 2020 has just been a crazy circus of a year in a lot of different ways. As someone that, kind of tests the boundaries, pushes the boundaries as a marketer, tries to do some innovative things. What have you been kind of thinking or considering in 2020 that, a marketer of any kind, digital marketer, someone that's in advertising, what can they be doing different? Keeping in mind that, consumer behaviors have changed. We're not going out as much. We're home. We're on our phones. We're in front of, whatever other screens we have. And you're launching this business kind of what is hopefully on the tail end of a pandemic. It's sounding like next year, maybe later Q1, Q2, after 70% of the country gets vaccinated, we'll go back to being in a somewhat normal state of things. But what can a business like yours, someone that's looking to start a business now, what can they be doing differently to attract eyeballs, to gain some traction so they're ready to kind of hit that hockey stick next year?
Yeah, I don't know, man. I just think it's always about just being aware of what's going on, trying to imagine, what the next 6 to 12 months is going to look like. And then just be flexible. It's hard. It's been hard, for everyone, right, to stay positive, this whole year, just because it's been a dumpster fire, of course. But yeah, I think there's always opportunity in any situation. So you just got to look at that and try to just adapt and, get out the piece of paper and, make a list and pros and cons and brainstorm and all that good stuff and just see what you can come up with. Because there's definitely a way to make, even if it's going from, horrible to just mediocrely bad, that's better than staying at horrible, right? So I don't know. I'm pretty confident though. I'm super excited about this news about these vaccines with like 95% effectiveness. I think that's going to be a huge boon to everything. I think we're going to have a hangover in 2021. It's, the first part of there's still going to be a lot of problems. And then to me, also the financial hangover of all of the stuff that we've had to do to keep this thing afloat. I don't see how at some point that doesn't come back to bite us. I don't know. What do you think about all that? How do we deal with that?
I don't have all the answers or any of them probably, but, working at a digital marketing agency and, managing a portfolio of 20 or so clients, most of them actually in healthcare and pharma. So they've done okay. But our retail clients, our franchise businesses, those have taken a big hit. So, my concern is for the small businesses. It's even in a city like Rochester that is somewhat, historically been isolated, it's just a smaller city. Like when the market crashed in 08, it's just, there wasn't as big of an impact here as some other places. Obviously, real estate has always been somewhat stable here, but even now, just driving around, you see a lot of dark office space, stores with lights off, and the local news just, this place is going out of business, that place is going out of business. I actually sadly received an email from my old gym in Chicago. It was this beautiful brand new gym in the heart of River North, closed their doors just last month. They couldn't sustain it anymore. So I worry about kind of how that's going to come back, right? Like, we know that small business drives the economy to a large extent. So, but at the same time, the latest metric that I saw is there's been more LLC registrations in the last 2 quarters than I think in the last 5 years combined or something like that. Maybe that stat is off, but just a huge number of, new businesses being started. And obviously that's due to a lot of folks being laid off and looking for new pathways to generate income. But hopefully there's some kind of a merger between the businesses that we're losing and the businesses that are being started, and also those new businesses maybe being a little bit more future proof.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of this is temporary too, though. I mean, gyms are definitely going to come back once this virus is done. I mean, why wouldn't gyms come back, right? Why wouldn't restaurants come back? Even though, they've taken a huge hit, obviously. And some are just not going to be able to make it. But others will pop up in their place once things are back to normal, So, I mean, that's the thing. I mean, some people may get caught. There's definitely going to be people that get caught in a bad place at the wrong time, and they're going to lose their whole life's work essentially. And it sucks for those people. Unfortunately, in a time of massive change, that's kind of always going to happen. But, to try and not have that, be your fate, I think is just, trying to be as flexible and forward thinking as possible so that you can avoid, falling into that trap. Yeah.
And I mean, we talk about digital transformation, in my business, and you've dealt with it too, kind of coming out of the tech, software agency space. And I think that's just accelerated that need for a lot of legacy businesses, whereas they've gotten by kind of doing things, using old business practices and not accepting digital payments, not using things like Venmo and Cash App. And now all of a sudden everything's gone remote, right? If you were a retailer that didn't have a strong e-commerce side of your business in 2020, I mean, you could make the argument you weren't really adopting with, the changing consumer behavior and sort of, keeping pace with the times. And the pandemic happens and you need to figure out how to use a Shopify store real quick, right? Yeah, exactly. I mean, it definitely accelerated a lot of trends, right? I mean, if you don't have your online presence dialed in by now, I mean, how many years warning did you have in the first place? But now it's okay, you better get it dialed in. Yeah, and that's I'll anonymize it a little bit, but one of my clients was a mattress store this year, and going back to last year, a mattress manufacturer and retailer, and they had this kind of very idealistic approach to e-commerce, which is we want people to come into the store. That's our value prop. We're going to charge a really high shipping fee. And we're going to be, transparent about it. It's $250 to ship. We're not going to play around with the pricing of our goods. And we're really, table stakes for us is driving consumers into the store, because our conversion rate when someone walks in and lays down on one of our mattresses is, 70% or so, they would say.
Yeah.
Well, now your stores are closed, right? Or they're partially closed, and people can't go in and lay on your mattresses. So whereas before you kind of thumbed your nose at Tuft and Needle and Purple, right, and all these kind of mattress in a box, where you thought that they weren't delivering as high quality of a product as yours, and you were this premium brand. Well, their business was set up to scale. Their business is set up for convenience, fast shipping, fast returns, right? Still some guarantees built into the value prop there. And now you guys, a business that's been around for 30 plus years, are having to play catch up in a matter of months to grab that same consumer attention,
right,
that you've been bleeding, because you had this kind of idealistic approach to, only wanting to drive people to your stores.
Wow. Yeah. What a great lesson.
Yeah.
Man.
So you don't want to become the Blockbuster or the Border Books, right?
I know. Yeah.
Well, what else do you have on your plate? Anything exciting?
Well, the next thing after the snowplow, if you want to talk about that.
Yeah. What else? What's next?
Well, so the next thing in the summer, and I'm working on it right now to get my ducks in a row, but is something called Hotshot Trucking. And basically what it is, it's a niche that's below semi trucks, right? Obviously, with the Tesla, I'm not going to be competing with semis, even though the Tesla semi is coming out. I really have no desire to be a Tesla semi driver, just because those things are just so big and obnoxious. I mean, I don't want to get a special driver's license, right? Mm-hmm. But anyway, there's this whole subculture called hotshot trucking, where typically people have like a dually, Ford 350 or whatever, and they're and then they got this big 40-foot long trailer, and then they're getting smaller loads. They're hauling construction equipment, farming equipment, building materials, what have you, from point A to point B, and they actually can make pretty good money. I mean, some of these guys can, bring in 200,000, 300,000, 400,000 in revenue, on one pickup, for the year. And, they have some big expenses, so they're not netting 400 grand. But what I'm going to try to do is do the same thing once again, but do it with a Tesla, right? And it was the same thing with the snowplow. Is like, I really was going to do it when the Cybertruck came out, but I'm like, you know what? Why wait? I'm going to do it with the Model Y, with a smaller trailer, and I'm going to, get all the kinks worked out and figure out the whole business on a smaller scale. But the beauty of it in doing it with a smaller vehicle and a smaller scale is, while my income is going to be limited, so are my expenses, right? My cost to get in, like the trailer that I'm going to buy is going to be probably around $5,000. A lot of these trailers, these other people are buying, are 15 or 20 grand, right? And then my fuel is going to be it's going to be so cheap, because a lot of these guys are spending $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 a month on fuel. I mean, they're typically driving 10,000 miles a month at, 9 miles per gallon. Mm-hmm. So imagine, how much your fuel costs are. Yeah. When you're doing that kind of mileage and that kind of bad fuel economy. So when I'm doing it in a Tesla and getting amazing fuel prices, and so I can do the same job and make a lot more profit.
Would you travel the same distances, or because your payload is smaller, so you're targeting a different kind of
No, I can go just as far or whatever. It doesn't matter. The distance doesn't matter. Although I will say I am going to, in the wintertime, basically going to stay mostly in California and Arizona, Nevada, the warmer spots. Because until the Cybertruck comes out with a 500-mile range, like the car I have only has about a little bit over a 300-mile range. Well, when you're towing something big, that can get cut in half. Mm-hmm. So I can't really throw, driving through the snow on top of that, because cold weather makes it even more challenging. So definitely want to stay in the warm areas, at least until springtime, and then I'll venture out into the, anywhere and everywhere type of situation.
Got it. So are you targeting construction?
Well, the way it works, it's an interesting thing. And once I've dived in and done the research, so basically what you do is once you get your Department of Transportation number and and another number called the MC number, which allows you to do interstate transport. Once you have that, basically you go to what's called the load board. And basically it's like a matchmaking service, right? Someone who has a load posts it on there, and then all the truckers who are trying to move freight, they're signing up for it, and whoever gets it first type of deal. So it's like, technology has definitely enabled that kind of whole situation to happen. Because now I can compete and I can grab, whatever. But the cool thing about it is it's completely entrepreneurial in that I can do whatever I want. Do I want to go to Texas today? Okay. I'm only going to look at freight that's going from Arizona to Texas. Oh, wait, I want to go to Seattle. Okay. I'm going to, go that direction or whatever, or, that one's not paying enough. Fine. I don't want that one. Oh, that one's paying a lot. Great. I'll take it. So it gives you a lot of flexibility in where and what you want to do.
And that exchange marketplace where you, match the need to the service provider, is that run by a private entity or is that state run?
That's a good question. I'm not sure. I think as far as I know, the load boards though are just a service. They're like there's brokers who have the loads, right? And then there's also direct shippers too. A specific company, and they may have their own employees that run the shipments. Mm-hmm. But that's kind of out of not what we're talking about. What we're talking about is, they don't have anyone that can do it themselves. So they need to put it on the load board and then put it up basically kind of for auction, if you will. Even though they're already putting a price, they're saying, okay, $1,500 to run it from LA to Missouri or whatever. Right. And then, they'll have a bunch of people trying to get that. So yeah, it's just basically a marketplace. It's like dating for freight,
Yep. So if you have, let's say there's a big snowfall in Flagstaff and there's a well-paying trucking gig that takes you up to an interesting part of the country, how are you going to choose?
Well, what I'm going to do, and especially for this year, is I'm just going to follow the weather. And you can tell just by looking at the forecast if there's anything on the horizon, and if there is any storms that are potentially going to snow, I'll just hang around Arizona. But if it's like, for example, right now we've already had one snow, but like as far as the calendar goes, there's no snow. So I know for the next 2 weeks I could be gone and I'm not going to miss anything, right? So I'm going to prioritize the snow, even though that's probably not the right financial decision. but just because I want to I want to give the snow thing a fair shot. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So I'm going to prioritize that just to, at least for one winter, just to give it a go and see where I go with it.
Yeah.
And then the way I look at it too is, I mean, in the summer, I mean, I'm going to be doing that all the time anyway. So I'm going to have plenty of time and get plenty sick of that to where I'll want to be like, oh man, I want to be home instead of in, Kansas or wherever I am.
Yeah. Yep. And I'm sure you've researched this, but would you be the first Tesla hot trucker?
Of course.
In that space. Yeah.
Of course. Yeah, no, that's the thing. I mean, that's one of the reasons I want to do it this year with an unconventional and not perfectly ideal vehicle to do it in. Because I imagine by the time the Cybertruck comes out, there'll be a number of people doing it then. But I want to basically be the first one to do it. And that's, I think, how I'm going to get a lot of action and traction on my YouTube channel. And then by the time the kind of the general interest of it kind of maybe dies down from doing it with a regular car, then I'll actually get my Cybertruck, and then I can do everything I already did this year over again, but then now with a Cybertruck, and that'll be a whole nother level of interest, I think, just because there's going to be so much interest around that vehicle.
Yeah. So the question that all the entrepreneurs get, right, or founders when they go in asking for investment, what's your exit strategy?
Right.
How am I getting my money back? Since I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but you like this approach of ideating and testing and trying new things every few years. Is there an exit strategy, or are you going to wait for Tesla to kind of roll out a new vehicle, a new tech, and then you'll kind of, put together an idea around that?
Well, I don't know. Here's the deal. So basically, the last 10 years or so, I've basically been in the vacation rental business, right? Which I think is a great business. I've enjoyed it, but honestly, I'm kind of burnt out on it. And ever since I got my first Tesla, the reality of it is that's really more my passion, right? And I've just been more excited about doing things on that end than on the vacation rental side. So what I'm trying to do is basically over the next year or so is basically figure out a way to completely go onto the Tesla side, right? And I think the bridge, the thing that'll make the kind of the exit strategy, if you will be the YouTube deal. If I can make that work, and it's a lot of work, and video editing is a pain, and so that could be my downfall. That's going to be the hardest and most annoying part of it. But if I can get past that and make that all happen, it's pretty amazing how many people actually make a good living on YouTube.
Yeah. Yep.
And I think I'm going to have enough unique content where if I don't totally screw it up, I can actually, do pretty well with it. So to me, that would be a great exit strategy, being able to make, because the whole point of the channel that I'm going to have is basically showing people how to make money with their Tesla, right? So I'll be making money with the Tesla, but then on top of that, I'll be making money on YouTube, and then, I can do other things. I can do eBooks. I can do, there's all kinds of different ways you can make money, on top of just your standard YouTube advertising income.
Yeah. The Revshare. And you could, if you're creating audio versions, obviously you will, of this content, you could push it out to all the kind of standard podcasting channels and monetize that. There's thresholds that you have to meet, right? Certain amount of streams or downloads, but if it's popular content, that could be a nice little, revenue stream, passive income, if you will.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll see. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I don't know if that's an exit strategy or not really, but yeah, we'll see. I mean, the other thing too is maybe getting, we'll see how the trucking thing goes, but there are ways to be able to, hire truckers underneath you and things like that, where you can scale it that way as well. We'll see. I mean, if I did that, it would be specifically for, people that are driving electric cars or trucks, I should say, rather than regular ones. Those would be the only ones I'd be interested in working with. But yeah, I mean, to me, we're still in the very, very baby steps, very, very, very beginnings of the whole electric vehicle revolution. And so, I mean, I've got maybe 10 good years of hard work left in me. And, I'm sure this whole thing is going to still be cranking for that long before it'll be time to take a break.
Well, you're pioneering a lot of these things, right? In some ways, just based on, what I've followed of your content, your Tesla, what did you call it? Cross country road trip, the Tesla road trip.
Well, yeah, I had one. It was really a bad name, but the $1 million Tesla trip, that one.
Yeah. Was that the official name?
That was the name. It turned out to be the $3,300 Tesla trip.
Almost there.
Yeah, very close. That was a poor decision, but it actually would have probably worked. And just to the whole idea originally was, I was going to get sponsorship put on the car, adding up to $1 million. Right. Mm-hmm. And the problem is I tried to do this whole thing in the span of literally 2 months. I mean, you're just not going to do that. I almost got one sponsor that would have been pretty decent, but it just didn't, it just didn't work, and it was not enough time. So anyway, actually I do have another idea that I'm going to possibly try to do another sponsorship deal, but we'll see. That's kind of just in the planning stages right now. But that would be with the Cybertruck, of course.
Yeah. Well, what I was getting to is you generated a lot of really interesting content, and you met some really unique folks along your journey. And a lot of them had businesses or interest in electric vehicles and in Tesla specifically. And it seemed like, what you were doing was at the time kind of a first of its kind, which I think speaks to the fact that when the Tesla hotel story got picked up, it landed on CNN, right?
Oh yeah, no, that thing was that was literally everywhere. It was on CNN, ABC World News Tonight. It was on every blog, I
remember reading it on Gawker on one of the, I think it's Jalopnik.
Yep. Yeah. Oh yeah, it was on there. It was, and then there were some hilarious titles too. In fact, one of my favorites was douchebag rents out his Tesla for $85 a night on Airbnb. Yeah. I never forgot that one for obvious reasons.
Yeah. Yeah. And I remember there was didn't the guy live blog his experience of actually sleeping in the car, or he was doing an AMA on Reddit, I believe.
Oh,
what, right? Didn't you have a journalist that came and actually?
No, I did. Well, I had two different journalists that did that, and I can't remember if one of them did that or not. But they both turned out to be pretty funny articles, because it was fairly comical. I mean, they were paying to sleep in my garage in my car, and they literally couldn't drive it or do anything. All they could do was sleep in it. But whatever. It was a good story.
It grabs headlines, and we're living in a headline grabbing world. So,
oh man, yeah.
If you can use that brand to your advantage to capture some clicks and some interest, then fantastic.
Oh yeah. There's so many examples of it, and it's like, and I'm already interested in it, and it's already right up my alley anyway. So it's like, why not? Why not?
I agree. Well, this was a great chat. Really enjoyed learning more about the business you have coming up, the snow plowing venture, and the one we can kind of keep an eye out for, right? And it sounds like 2021, the trucking, or is that?
Yeah, that'll be more 2021 summer type of thing.
Okay. Where you have some domains created, but if someone wanted to look you up or get in touch, what's the best way?
Yeah, so it's kind of a mess right now just because I have an old site that I don't want to get rid of because it still has a lot of good SEO juice and whatnot. So I'm going to probably house a lot of the stuff on that same site, even though but anyway, I have I have a couple different domains, but the main one I'm going to push is probably just going to be called, that'll go to my that'll go to my YouTube channel, which will be called Tesla Income. And so the web address for that will just be teslaincome.tv. And it's not actually live yet, but in another month or so, it'll be all set up. So,
well, when the graphics come in, we'll have that overlaid somewhere here.
There we go. Perfect.
Well, very cool. I enjoyed the chat. I'm sure we'll be checking in. We'll have to do a multi-part series on this and see how your business is evolving. No,
I would love it just for my own, on my own, to see how much of what I actually said came true, or if I was completely off base, which is probably the case.
Hey, it's, the mark of an entrepreneur is you have to get out there and you have to try these things, right?
Oh yeah. I'll definitely fall on my face, but you know what? I'll get back up.
That's right. It's more than that. A lot of us whiteboard ideas and then never actually put anything into practice. You're doing it. So
yep.
Be exciting to continue to follow the journey.
To me, that's the fun. Just take your swings, man. You're only here once. Give it a go.
That's right. I like that.
Yeah. Awesome, man. Well, great talking to you, and we'll do it again.
Sounds good. All right. Thanks, Steve.
Yep. See ya.
Yeah.